Every day, SDPB connects South Dakotans with stories that inform, inspire, and bring us together. SDPB, good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB is your home for fact-based journalism, connecting South Dakotans with news they can trust and stories that matter. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB.
Good morning. Welcome to the, got a little echo here. Welcome to the Joint Committee on Appropriations. I'm Representative Mike Derby, the lead co-chair, along with my co-chair, Senator Otten. And as we do every morning, we start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Representative Jorgensen, would you please start us? Thank you, Representative Jorgensen. I'd like to welcome all of our internet listeners and those of you that are watching us on South Dakota Public Broadcasting. And just a reminder, make sure make sure all your cell phones are off, please. There is a penalty if your cell phone goes off. It's donuts the next day. So. Lobbyists must be wearing badges for the organization they're representing, and testifiers must sign the guest register. Pages can help you with that, but all testifiers must sign. And all testimony and questions will be addressed through the chair. At this time, I'll ask the secretary to please call the roll.
Senators and Representatives, Ms. Skimmons.
Here.
Elk.
Here.
Casson. Moore. Philhauer. Carly. Voida. Jorgensen. Howard. Foster. Sharda.
Here.
Mucky. Zickman. Colbeck.
Here.
Norstrup.
Here.
Lapke. Otten.
Here.
Derby.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Are there any minutes out there for approval?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Senator Miskimmons.
I move to approve the minutes of February 24th, 2026.
Motion by Senator Miskimmons, seconded by Senator Voida. Discussion on the motion. No discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Got some pages here today, and we'd love to have you come up front and push the button, and please introduce yourself, where you're from, and future plans, and maybe what your favorite hobby is.
I'll be back in 5 minutes.
My name is Derek Thompson. I'm from Hill City. I plan to go to a four-year university and get my undergrad in political science and then go to law school. And my favorite hobby is to go skiing.
Great, thank you. Hi.
Hi, I'm Layla Williams. I'm from Hill City. My future plans are to attend Flagler College in St. Augustine, Florida, majoring in political science, and then I will pursue a law degree somewhere. My favorite hobby is probably working out.
Okay, so you're both from Hill City, is that correct? Oh, is that a coincidence, or just did you plan that?
3 of us applied together for this program. We've been talking about it for a few years, so.
Okay, glad to have you here. Thank you very much. And do we have any introductions, personal privileges, or announcements? All right, seeing none. We are going to move on to our bill hearing. We're going to take House Bill 1048, and then we'll take a short recess just to let everybody know that. But we're going to do House Bill 1048, make an appropriation for the expansion of broadband infrastructure and to declare an emergency. Good. Please introduce yourself.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the Joint Committee on Appropriations. I'm Jack Valentine. I'm the Operations Division Director for the Governor's Office of Economic Development. I come before you this morning to present on House Bill 1048. This is a request for $87 million in federal fund expenditure authority against a $207 million allocation from the federal government for the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. For almost 4 years, BEAD has been weighed down by bureaucratic red tape, market distorting restrictions, and heavy-handed extra-legal social mandates. This major bipartisan initiative was at risk of becoming yet another broadband program that failed to deliver. But new leadership makes a difference. In just a few short months, the Trump administration transformed BEAD from a boondoggle built on unlawful rules into a genuine success for the American people. Under Secretary Lutnick's leadership, the benefit of the bargain reforms restored the BEAD program to its statutory objective, which is universal connectivity delivered through competition, accountability, and respect for the law. The result has been lower costs for taxpayers, real skin in the game for internet service providers, faster broadband connectivity, and enhanced access for consumers. Thanks to the Trump administration's benefit of the bargain reforms to the BEAD program, announced last June, states and territories experienced a surge in participation, competition, and private sector matching contributions. These factors combine to drive down cost, increasing, again, skin in the game, and advancing innovative solutions for consumers. As a result of the benefit of the bargain, total savings for the American taxpayer are now estimated to be $21 billion, which is over half of the total funding that was allocated to the BEAD program. States, now freed from the unlawful one-size-fits-all mandates, could evaluate projects on a granular basis and select those that truly fit their needs. Indeed, our results show huge diversity in the technologies and the technological mixes that reflect the realities of South Dakota's geographic, topographic, and population density differences, as well as being guided by the principle of using market-driven technological innovations. GOED has been particularly diligent in ensuring fiscal responsibility was upheld as a prime consideration for using these BEAD monies throughout the process. There are 7,060 unserved locations across the state.
Can we hold questions?
I'd like him to explain what BEAD stands
Oh,
for.
I appreciate that. We love acronyms here.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
BEAD is the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. Thank you. For these 7,060 unserved locations across the state, prior to the benefit of the bargain round, the cost per location would have been approximately $17,000. This amount now stands at approximately $12,300 per location. So why broadband for all? Broadband is essential in South Dakota to bridge the digital divide affecting over 135,000 residents. This ensures rural communities can access modern healthcare, education, and economic opportunities. It drives economic growth by supporting agribusiness, remote work, and small business while providing critical access to telehealth services and workforce education. High-speed internet helps rural, sparsely populated areas retain residents and attract new residents by enabling remote work and improving the quality of life. With nearly half of the state's rural counties lacking adequate access, expanding infrastructure like the Connect South Dakota initiative is crucial for ensuring equitable access to modern services. Before the committee was called to order, the pages distributed some maps. I would call your attention to where we stand. Started in 2019 as the start of the Connect SD programs coming out of and resulting from the COVID pandemic to where we are now with connectivity in 2025. And finally, the map 2026 and beyond shows the density of the 7,060 locations that will be connected by this $87 million in federal funds expenditure authority through the BEAD program. In closing, despite the varied challenges in reaching remote areas and mainly attributed to the high cost for these last mile projects, investments have brought broadband access to 91% of South Dakota by 2024, with the goal for this BEAD deployment funding being to connect the remaining 9%. I ask that you support House Bill 1048 and pass this act to provide GOED with the $87 million in federal funds expenditure authority for BEAD. And I would stand by for any questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional proponents, House Bill 1048. Additional proponents. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Eric Nelson with AARP South Dakota, our Government Relations Director and Registered Lobbyist. AARP is the age 50 plus membership organization. We have nearly 100,000 members from across the state, and we advocate for South Dakota's 50 plus population. Ask you to support the bill before you today. Our organization has a history of supporting the broadband expansion efforts across the state going back to 2019. That was referenced. I recall then Governor Noem, the very first day of the state, addressed launching the Connect South Dakota initiative. We were able to partner with her to kind of inform our members about what that was going to mean and how it was going to benefit them. We've also been supportive of the BEAD program for many of the reasons that were stated previously. I rise before you today to also let you know that all of your constituents are internet users. We have data and polls that show 90% of South Dakotans age 50 plus have internet access, and 3 out of 4 of those individuals are online daily for a variety of reasons, whether it's for work, medication, and medications in all parts of the state. So given the reasons you previously heard and the reasons I just presented to you, we ask you to support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional proponents. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Justin Smith, attorney from Sioux Falls, the registered lobbyist for Mid-Continent Communications. For all the reasons that have been stated by the previous speakers, whether you are served in your area by Midco or one of our many competitors in the state, large and small, expanding broadband access across the state of South Dakota gives more people access to the internet, to information, to the free market. So we rise in support of this bill and would ask for favorable consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional proponents for House Bill 1048. Any additional proponents? Is there anybody online? Additional proponents? Seeing none, we'll move on to opponents. Are there any opponents for House Bill 1048? Opponents? Online? Seeing none online, we will now open it up for committee questions. Questions from the committee. Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for the Prime. I'm wondering how much is a subscription to Starlink? And so I need to know, how many homes is this affecting? What is a subscription to Starlink versus what is the cost of doing this for each of those homes?
Mr. Chair, and for the record, again, Jack Valentine, Operations Division Director for the Governor's Office of Economic Development. Thank you for the question, Senator Howard. The cost for the consumer for the equipment for Starlink or Amazon Kuiper, any of the low Earth orbit satellites, is roughly about the same at about $400 for the equipment. However, the major cost for this is the 2,700 satellites that are needed to build the constellation, the mesh constellation specific to South Dakota to provide the actual signals and to bounce those actual signals to ensure the connectivity exists.
Follow up.
Okay. What about all the individuals through the years that have paid for their own subscriptions? They've paid for their own getting the equipment to their driveways. You know, I mean, our subdivision, we did this on our own. We came together. We did not have broadband access, but we came together. The whole subdivision agreed to do this, and we had them come in. Are we going to give them a refund? I mean, why do some individuals have to pay for this themselves, but now we're going down the road of taxpayers paying for certain individuals to have broadband access?
Mr. Chair, Senator Howard, that's a valid question. I think that goes into the federal policy. This initiative coming out of the NTIA, National Telecommunications Institute and Association, I might not have that acronym correct, and coming out of the Connect SD programs is really to connect those last mile and those last remaining connections that do not have internet service. It became apparent throughout the pandemic how connectivity and time resilience of operations was crucial to public safety, education, healthcare, workforce and economic benefits, work from home, for example, and those types of things.
Follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just because you said no internet, don't most of these still have dial-up? It's just they don't have high-speed broadband?
Mr. Chair, I don't know the status of that, whether they have dial-up or some other type of wireless service. The gold standard is broadband, fiber to the premises. The low Earth orbit satellites are the next best available technology. And so again, for the time connectivity and resilience of communications, keeping those connections pertinent and live is paramount, again, to remote health, remote work, remote education, and those opportunities.
Follow up. Okay. Representative Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's always nice to have a pair of jacks in the room. Hey, question on your budget here a little bit that I've been looking through. I see you got 70, you're going to asking for 87 million of federal funding authority, and you have 72 million that you're budgeting for the contractual services, and then administrative costs of 2.5 million. Can you explain how many FTEs or any at all that are in that 2.5 million? Salaries, benefits, travel, et cetera, and is that FTE or 2 or 3, whatever you have budgeted for that, are they going to stay within your department after this project is finished, or are they temporarily employed, or how's that sort of?
Mr. Chair? Yes, thank you for the question, Representative Colbeck. The plan is definitely to keep that full-time employee on staff. We've recently transitioned in GOED to move that person onto the finance team as a member of our grants management and grants administration team. Going back 4 years, there was as many as 4 full-time employees dedicated to the Connect South Dakota initiatives. This started with the SLF-RF ARPA funds, moved into the Connect SD appropriation that the state made, the $75 million appropriation that the state made for broadband around 2020, 2021. At current, there is 1 dedicated full-time employee that is having their salary and benefits paid from these federal funds, these particular federal funds.
Follow-up?
Follow-up? Can you turn your microphone on, please?
Sorry, Mr. Chair. This FTE then, will that be an ongoing expense to your department when this particular project is completed then?
Mr. Chair. Thank you for that question, Representative Colbeck. Yes, it would. However, we would use or utilize other federal fund expenditure authority. There's other federal funded programs that GOED administers, such as the Community Development Block Grant, the State Small Business Credit Initiative, and so they would transition within that grants management, grants administration team to other duties in other programs.
Thank you for that. So I would say that if I'm still around here in 3 or 4 years, you might be coming back to see me again. Is that correct to say that?
Mr. Chair, that would be fair to say, Representative Colbeck. As I noted before, this is a $207 million allocation for the state. Sometime in mid-March, GOED has been informed that NTIA will open up a window of opportunity for states to apply to use the additional, in this case, $120 million for non-deployment related broadband equity access and deployment projects.
Okay, we got Senator Carly, Vilhauer, Howard, and Jorgensen.
Thank
Senator
you,
Carly.
Yeah, just had a question. I looked up Starlink since that was brought up. I see they're charging $50 a month and $349 for equipment. So I just want to ask you about the infrastructure question. You talked about who paid for the infrastructure. You mentioned, I'd like to know this 87 million, who's paying for this 87 million ultimately? Who's paying for that? And then you mentioned Starlink infrastructure. Who paid for the Starlink infrastructure as well?
Mr. Chair, this $87 million is paying for those satellites to be launched into the air and create that constellation for South Dakota specifically. In other states as they relate their unserved and unconnected locations. According to Amazon Kuiper, who is the provider that was selected out of the benefit of bargaining round for South Dakota, the total deployment cost for the satellites is in the neighborhood of $20 billion. Now, that's not specific to South Dakota, but it's an astronomical figure just to get the satellites up in the air, not with counting on the equipment for the consumer. They're also looking at a $1 to $2 billion annual operating cost just for Amazon Kuiper, again, to keep those satellites in their low Earth orbit and to keep that connectivity. And so that $400 per terminal, while that connects the individual consumer, it really takes that collective mesh of satellites to build the constellation to keep everybody connected as a whole and keep enough bandwidth that everybody who has the equipment can access the service.
Follow-up?
Okay, so I just want to understand this. My understanding is Starlink paid for their constellation, and yeah, they did spend 10 to 20 billion. So that's a private company that put the constellation up, and now they're offering it at $50 a month for remote areas. And the 87 million, I think it says it's federal funds, so I assume that's ultimately all of us taxpayers in South Dakota pay our federal tax, and that eventually that's coming back in those federal funds. So I guess the question is, why not just we recommend, if someone in a rural area that's underserved, I see your map, why not just recommend to them they get the $50 a month Starlink that works excellently, for many South Dakotans already?
Mr. Chair. Great question, Senator Carly. I will tell you that there's not enough satellites in the sky at current to connect that amount of people if they all went with Starlink. And so it really takes this expanded array and this expanded constellation of infrastructure to connect everybody and keep those connections active, live, and real time.
I'd just love a follow-up on that, an email from Starlink saying they can't serve South Dakota customers, because I get marketing all the time saying, hey, neighbors install it that left and right. So if you have any documentation on that, I'd love to have that. You'd follow up later on that they don't have enough capacity for South Dakota. Thank you.
Senator Vilhauer.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Valentine, I wasn't following the math initially. You said the per location cost is $12,300, and I believe you said that is down from $17,000. Did I hear you say something to that effect early on?
Mr. Chair. Yes, Senator Vilhauer, before the benefit of the bargain round, the state of South Dakota was looking at $120+ million amount to connect the remaining 7,000 locations across the state. That was going to run fiber to each of the premises, so a dedicated fiber infrastructure run to each unserved location. Benefit of the bargain round allowed these low Earth orbit satellites, thus reducing the cost by that $30 million.
Follow-up. I apologize. You probably explained what is the bargain round.
Mr. Chair, the benefit of the bargain round was a transition between the Biden administration, where this BEAD funding came out of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, into the Trump administration, where the Trump administration allowed for this lowering of the cost, if you will, to, again, save the taxpayers the cost, or save the taxpayers as much burden as possible in connecting these locations. So under the previous presidential administration, there was a lot of burdensome permitting, environmental regulations. It removed a lot of those cumbersome and socially cumbersome legal regulations.
Thank you.
Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I've been here for several years when we have previously funded broadband. I mean, this is not a new funding for broadband. It goes back to 2019. And when you add up what we have spent already, it's already over 80 million in general funds and over 88 million in federal funds and some matching from the industry. So we're talking over 300 million all total. But correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I figure, you just said this is saving taxpayer dollars, but how is it saving taxpayer dollars? You add up the 80 million and 88 million, that's over 172 million. The taxpayers have already paid. That's more than $200 for every single South Dakotan, whether they want high-speed broadband or not. I mean, I've already got it, but I paid for it myself. So why should every other South Dakotan pay what we've already paid to get high-speed broadband for these few remaining homes, some of whom may not want it? Why should every taxpayer be on the hook for this? I struggle with that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Thank you for that question, Senator Howard. I think, again, that goes into federal policy. This is a federal program from the U.S. Department of Commerce about connecting every location across the United States. Certainly, that allocation has already been made from the federal side. Again, the allocation for South Dakota was $207 million. Out of fiduciary responsibility, GOED purposefully did not spend that $207 million to connect these locations. That would have been irresponsible. It would have been a waste of money. We are taking as much responsibility and being as diligent as possible. We're connecting these locations that we have been, in a lot of ways, mandated to connect. And these locations also are those which have identified they want these connections.
Just follow up.
Follow up.
Is there some rule, some statute that I'm missing, though, that says that we have to go along with every federal policy?
Mr. Chair, not that I am aware of.
Representative Jorgensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to talk a little bit about the GRIT Task Force. I'm sorry, I cannot remember what Governor's Resilience Infrastructure, I can't remember exactly what it stands for. But I know as far as broadband, that if there ever was an EMP blast, that it's definitely much more protected. And I will say, and I do want to get your, I'm sorry, I've got kind of a comment here too, but I don't have broadband. I don't expect that I will ever get broadband, but people keep saying, oh, get Starlink. But unless you have line of sight with the satellite, you're going to have times when it works and times when it doesn't. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. I mean, I come out of a military background with space and missile warning, and so you really do have to have that line of sight. And there are places, I'm sure, in the Black Hills where they're really going to struggle for a satellite to work or for a dish to work. So my question for you is, if there is any EMP, has there been talk about, safety and security with being able to reach out and have people have connectivity during an incident like that? Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank
you for that.
Representative Jorgensen, what's an EMP for the listening audience?
Electromagnetic pulse.
Thank you.
Representative Jorgensen, you did very well with the GRIT Task Force acronym, Governor's Resiliency Infrastructure Task Force. Yes, there has been conversations about that. That is one of the main goals of the GRIT Task Force, as well as for this program and the connectivity. Really, the reasoning for the 2,700 satellites that Amazon will have to launch into South Dakota to connect these 2,700 sites that will be served by satellite is so that redundancy is built in. It's not just one satellite that it has line of sight to, it's multiple. And so really it's building that constellation where we have that resiliency, where we have those redundant connections built in.
All right, thank you. Any additional committee questions? All right, seeing none, we'll close public testimony. Committee discussion.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Senator Otten.
Well, you would think, living over in T, that I would have always had internet, and the sad reality is didn't. For the early years, while I was elected, I would do my work on the computer at home. I have to drive into T, park alongside of the Avera clinic, and try to get my work done and download. I mean, being an expert with String and Campbell soup cans, and not so much with computers, I would lose my work and have to go back and drag the wife with me over to the Avera clinic to get my work done. So then we decided we were going to go to satellite. Made sense. And spotty at best. I mean, you would still think I'm that close to Sioux Falls. I mean, should be able to get it. Couldn't. We tried a variety of other things to hook even to, what's the town over by Sioux Falls? Anyway, there's a town, small town, and hooked to their tower. That wouldn't work. And it got fairly frustrating. Now, when I also look at, so I'm for this, but then when you actually go back, let's go back 100 years, no electricity in South Dakota. The federal government decided that we're going to go do electricity. And at that time, there was something called a Jacob generator. I don't know if any of you know about it, but a lot of our, in the big cities, the electricity that was being generated there was being generated by the Jacob generator. You could also get them for farmsteads, so some of the farmsteads were sticking in. So they were making an investment in that. And then finally, the RA came about where we're actually getting electricity to individuals. And so then when you think about it back then, the distance to get one farmer, one lowly farmer out there in the sticks, he's just got Aunt Agnes living with him or mom or whoever it is, and yet the government put that cost into that to get that to them. Why? Because all citizens are treated equally. And so when I look at this, yes, I get the consternation, I get the frustration, but to me, this is something that is essential for another generation on how they're actually going to live their lives. And so I would strongly ask the committee to go along with this. Yes, it's a lot of money. Yes, it's a small area. Yes to all those things. But they're also citizens of the United States. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Any further discussion on House Bill 1048? Senator Vilhauer.
Mr. Chair, I move do pass.
We have a motion by Senator Vilhauer, seconded by Representative Mucky for due pass on House Bill 1048. Discussion on the motion.
Nothing for me.
Seeing none, Senator Carley.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to resist this motion. Our federal government is $39 trillion in debt. This is taking on more debt to put in fiber when you can get very low-cost private Starlink. Currently, we don't need to wait around for Amazon. Amazon is releasing their own service, but you can already get Starlink. So I'm going to resist it just because we already have a tool that's less expensive. Thank you. And not government.
Any further discussion? Representative Mucky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to highlight for the committee, I respectfully disagree with the prior speaker's comments. Now, this is funding that's already been allocated at the federal level to pursue this service for our residents in South Dakota, some of whom are in the most rural parts of the state. They need the service. They need us to act responsibly to help them get access to this infrastructure. This is vital infrastructure that we're talking about here. And so the fact that it's already been allocated and available to our state, again, as with many of these programs, turning it away is just simply sending it to another location. I would prefer that we take care of our own. So I respectfully disagree with the prior comments and ask you to please vote green on this. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we do have a due pass motion. Secretary, call the roll.
Senators and Representatives, Ms. Gimmons.
Aye.
Alk.
Aye.
Casson. Aye. Moore.
Aye.
Vilhauer. Aye. Carly.
No.
Voida. Aye. Jorgensen.
Aye.
Howard. Foster.
Aye.
Sharda.
Aye.
Mucky.
Aye.
Zickman.
Aye.
Colbeck.
Aye.
Norstrup.
Aye.
Lapke. Voida. Otten.
Aye.
Derby.
Aye.
15 yea, 1 nay, 2 absent.
Motion do pass on House Bill 1048 hereby passes. We are going to take a Oh, okay. Who would like to, Senator Miskimmons?
Personal privilege, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I apologize that I didn't do it when that came around, but I was distracted.
That's
so.
okay.
In the room today are two outstanding members of the Mitchell community. Mel and Karen Pooley are here today, and they are incredible. They were business owners for many years, but in retirement, Karen was recognized this past year as the Person of the Year for the Mitchell community by the Daily Republic. They work at the Historical Society, they work at the food pantry, they work for Main Street Mitchell. They're almost full-time volunteers for others. So I want everyone to acknowledge that Mel and Karen are here today.
Okay, we need to assign this bill. Is there anybody who in the House would like to carry this? Representative Mucky. Who in the Senate?
Senator Vilhauer?
All right. Thank you. We're going to take a 10-minute recess. Thank you.
SDPB brings you closer to your government. With gavel-to-gavel coverage of the South Dakota legislature and in-depth reporting from Pierre. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. From early learners to lifelong students, SDPB inspires curiosity through trusted educational programs and resources for every stage of life. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. When South Dakotans need reliable information, SDPB is there providing updates and coverage that keep our communities safe and connected. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB celebrates South Dakota's student athletes with live coverage of SDHSAA state championships, sharing the excitement of hometown heroes. SDPB, good, useful, and full of wonder.
Good morning. We're going to come back to the Joint Committee on Appropriations, and we're on to House Bill 1147, make an appropriation for the purchase and distribution of food by a statewide distribution organization. Proponents? Yep. Good morning, welcome, and please introduce yourself.
Good mornings. Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee. I'm Lori Dykstra, CEO of Feeding South Dakota, and I'm here today to talk about House Bill 1147. House Bill 1147 is a targeted one-time investment that helps us stabilize a system that has been under significant strain. If you look at the handout that was sent out, I think you all should have got the handouts, hopefully. On the first page of it, you'll see there's two different stories depicted at the top with the two charts. And on the left, you'll see that we've been decreasing in our foods. So the green over time, our donated products has been decreasing over the last 5 years. A large portion of that is starting to hit us now from the federal food cuts over the last year and a half. On the right, you'll see the 3 arrows that are going up, and what we're seeing there is our food insecurity rate in South Dakota going up, and it's currently at a record high. So where we have low resources, high need, we've created a gap. And that gap is really what we're here to talk about. There's 2 components to this bill, and I don't know if, I feel like I should just take a moment to sort of explain the 2 different sides of it. The first side is really a key component of it is replacing that local food purchase assistance dollars in the Department of Agriculture, which ended last year. When we lost that program, it really created a problem where we lost that farm to table model, where we were able to purchase from local providers and bring that food in and help our neighbors in need. So it really hurt our agricultural partners, but it also hurt our neighbors who are relying on that good, healthy South Dakota food. This bill would once again allow us to purchase that food as we're working with the federal government to bring that program back. It would be one-time funding to help us support that gap in coverage and really make sure that we can get that food out efficiently across the state in all 66 counties. The second side of this is really just one-time investment to help us just stabilize our core programs that serve our neighbors in need across the state. So if you turn the handout over, you'll see on the backside really what our current partnership is with Department of Ed. One of the things that we are challenged with and really is creating some pressure to operate is our USDA program that we run through the Department of Ed. They subcontract Feeding South Dakota to move those USDA programs, foods, so that's the Emergency Food Assistance Program, or TFAP, and the CSFP program, which Commodity Food Share Program, which we also sometimes call our Senior Box Program. We move those for the entire state. And you can see on the left the billable expenses for that program from Feeding South Dakota is $1,778,479, and we get reimbursed just $711,045. So you can see there's a shortfall of over $1 million. So my challenge is every year when I start my budget process, I start from $1 million behind. So we have to ask our private donors and our corporations to help support a shortfall in a program that we think is essential, but also it's a public service. And so we are subsidizing this program at over $1 million. That puts a significant strain on our budget, and that's really one of the main reasons why we're here talking to you all. This bill would allow us to keep food local, or keep out those local food purchases from farmers, but then also expand on being able to purchase more food. And another thing that would really allow us to do that is being able to increase that reimbursement. So that reimbursement being at $1 million deficit to our food pantry, our food bank, really creates a strain. So if we were able to change that and increase that, that would also allow us to take those dollars that we're no longer subsidizing this public program and go purchase food. So it's sort of one way or another, we need to purchase more food to create stability in our programs and not have to continue to decrease our services in these counties. There's a couple letters I just want to bring attention to in the packet. The first letter is a letter from all 16 members of our board of directors, just really urging support of this bill and supporting Feeding South Dakota and helping us create this food safety net in the state. The second one is a coalition of donors and philanthropic partners. They understand their philanthropic role in this work, but they're asking for a partnership with the state of South Dakota so that this really becomes shared responsibility, especially when it's a public program that we're leading. In closing, I think Feeding South Dakota is a great responsible use of dollars in South Dakota. Not only do we operate efficiently, more efficiently than a lot of nonprofits, we are transparent, we have a high accountability, and we really are effectively moving food across all 66 counties in our state. This one-time stabilization would allow us to not see additional cuts in our programs, which will affect families, children, and seniors in all of our communities. So we urge you to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dykstra. Welcome, Representative. And there is an amendment pending. Well, please introduce yourself.
Yes. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Representative Eric Mucky, District 15. I would like to move Amendment 1147A at this time.
Motion by Representative Mucky, second by Representative Casson. Discussion on the motion.
Presenting this to you all, I just want to make sure I clarify the reason for this amendment is talking through a plan for a motion sheet as well as a one-time funding. So this amendment will reduce that amount to the one-time portion that we would look at of 1.5 million instead of 5. So at this time, I'd just ask for your support.
Any further discussion on the motion to amend? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We are now on 1147 as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Good to be with you all this morning. Representative Eric Mucky, District 15. If you're looking at a bit of an untraditional start to a bill hearing, there's a little bit of intention behind that in some ways of saying what we have tried to accomplish and figure out is how do we address an ongoing shortfall with our food bank network in South Dakota. As I will bring to you, and I mentioned the amendment, I will be bringing you a motion sheet to discuss that delta with the Department of Education and making sure that the TFAP program is being properly reimbursed going forward. Because that is an ongoing expense, I do not feel it was appropriate for me to continue forward with that in a one-time bill. And I want to make sure that I'm being palms up with you in that regard. So where are we at now?
Representative Mucky, before you proceed, will you describe the motion sheet and the process?
Yes. So thank you, Mr. Chair. So the motion sheet I'll be bringing to you would cover on this back that shortfall that we're discussing in the Department of Education budget setting process. Essentially what we're looking at here is given that that is where the source for those USDA food dollars are going through the TFAP program as Ms. Dykstra described, I will be bringing that motion sheet to you when the time comes. And if I may then, going to 1147A, the reason for keeping the 1.5 million is to continue or relaunch the support of the local food purchase assistance program. This was a former federal program that supported the state of South Dakota by connecting small family-owned farms and ranches with our food banks and growing contracts to provide food for our food banks. That is a vital service that supports both food banks across the state in all 66 counties, but also is a really effective partnership with small farms and ranches across the state who are growing for us locally. I'm happy to stand by for further questions for our proponents, but the reason we brought forward this bill is knowing that there is a need for this to be restored. I also know the partners behind me from Feeding South Dakota are working actively with our partners federally to restore that program going forward. The reason for a one-time nature of this is a short-term solution while we advocate to the USDA to restore that program and restore that funding to our farmers and ranchers across the state that grow for that program. And so with that, Mr. Chair, I'll stand back for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional proponents, and we have a number of bills today. We're going to limit the additional proponents to 12 minutes. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of Joint Appropriations. Taya Runyon, I'm the registered lobbyist for South Dakota Cattlemen's Association. We are farmers and ranchers across the state representing all aspects of the beef production industry, and we're asking for your support of House Bill 1147 as amended. This proposal not only supports our farmers and ranchers through the purchase of local foods, including beef, but it also ensures that the healthy and nutritious food that is distributed across the state gets to the people that need it most, and for that reason, we ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional proponents. Go ahead and push that button there. Thank you.
I'm Karen Pooley from Mitchell, as you just found out, and I work at the Mitchell Food Pantry. We partner with Feeding South Dakota to bring healthy food to our friends and neighbors in need. And we serve probably 350 families, 1,000 people, and 400 kids each month. Last year, we were able to take advantage of the local purchase food assistance project, and we could get milk and cheese from Ethan just 12 miles away. And, it was a win-win-win. The family sold their milk and cheese, and it didn't cost the food pantry anything, and the kids got the milk. So I'm here today to ask you to support and pass House Bill 1147.
Thank you. Additional proponents. Good morning.
Mr. Chairman and joint members, my name is Trevor Gilkerson. I'm a part of a family farm east of Brookings. I'm also a member of Dakota Fresh Food Hub based in Sioux Falls. Dakota Fresh had previously benefited from the Local Food Purchase Assistant Grant Program. This program provided funds to purchase locally grown foods from our members as well as other local producers to supply several Feeding South Dakota locations. This helped provide our producers with additional outlets for their production, as well as connect needy individuals and families with fresh, local, and healthy food. In my operation, I grow greenhouse tomatoes. There are periods of time during the season when there is surplus production that I'm unable to sell to my customers. And I'm sure every other grower in the state has the same issue from time to time. Getting surplus production, harvested, washed, boxed, and delivered is costly. Having the option to sell this surplus to a third party to distribute to those in need ensures that this valuable product doesn't go to waste. So therefore, I'm asking for your support on House Bill 1147. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional proponents for House Bill 1147. Good morning.
My name is Hope Armstrong, and I run the Governor Grocery. I am a local student pantry that's located literally right across the street from the Capitol. I'm a retired school teacher. I started this I have a staff of 18 that feeds kids here in the Pierre Public School District. I have partnered with Feeding South Dakota to allow my very limited funding to stretch much farther. The example that I give is that I can go to Walmart and buy a box of or a little bowl of cereal for $1.24, and I can get it from Feeding South Dakota for 18 cents. And I'm on a really limited, tight budget, and I'm trying to feed as many kids as I can. I give 7 meals a week to 160 kids to pick up with the backpack program. To feed kids over the weekend. The backpack program ends at 5th grade, and so I picked up and started a program to feed 6th graders through 12th graders. And so I have a very limited budget. Feeding South Dakota has been very gracious to partner with me. The reason that I am here to offer my support to this bill today is I really need Feeding South Dakota to have a steady supply of the food inventory that they offer on their menu. My biggest frustration as a person who runs a pantry is on any given day, the menu that's offered available to me can fluctuate very greatly from day to day. And there are items that I need every single week to feed the kids that I feed. And so I partner with businesses. I partner with 10 churches in my community. There's on page number 5 of the letters that you've been given in your packet, you'll see that it comes from Celebrate Church, and they're reiterating many of the things that I'm saying also. And I can also attest to this because my church, my church and pastor, we partner with the Governor Grocery. They do amazing work. Feeding South Dakota has been wonderful to work with, but they need your help. I mean, they really are trying to pull loaves and fishes out of nowhere to feed the hungry, and the least of these are the children of South Dakota, and they're our future. So I just ask that you give this bill your support and that you just do right by the future of the state. And I know that's why you're here. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional proponents, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm Kim Malsom-Risden with Avera Health, and we too are here to support House Bill 1147. I think you've heard a theme from the proponents so far about partnership. Avera is very proud to also partner to address food insecurity across our state. We do that by donating directly to Feeding South Dakota to support mobile delivery of food to communities that don't have established food banks so that we can get, especially to those rural areas of our state. We also partner with Feeding South Dakota to provide food in some of our clinic locations where we see people come in for health care and they screen as being food insecure. And so what we're able to do in some of these locations is provide those families with a bag of shelf-stable food, a limited supply, referrals to longer-term resources to help meet those needs, and hopefully be able to address their health care needs in a more positive way, because we know that food insecurity contributes towards chronic disease and other acute conditions. So with that, we're very proud to support Feeding South Dakota. We hope that the state will become a willing partner in this very complex issue, and we would urge your support of House Bill 1147. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional proponents in the room? Any additional proponents? And we have 2 online, I believe.
Good morning, Mr.
Hello.
Chair.
Oh, go ahead.
Would you like me to go?
Yes,
Okay.
we'll do in-person testimony.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Lindsay Ryder-Rapp. I'm a registered lobbyist for the South Dakota Advocacy Network for Women. We also support this legislation. As you've heard from many this morning, we know that food security is on the rise in our communities. We certainly support programs like this that provide the necessary resources to our struggling families. Thank you.
You used the term food insecurity or security? Yeah. Whoop. Please put the microphone on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Identify food insecurity. What does that mean?
They don't have the necessary food to meet their needs, frankly, to meet their basic needs.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Just wanted to clarify. Anyone in the room, online? We've got 2 online.
Hello, committee and chair. Thank you for having me. My name is Stephanie Peterson. I am the general manager of the Dakota Fresh Food Hub in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We are a farmer-owned collective that pools resources to market and distribute our members' products. Our farmers all are within 150 miles of Sioux Falls, and they are committed to sustainable food production for our communities. Please see the support letter from our food hub, which is on page 6 of the packet you've been given. This potential funding of HB 1147 would affect not just 1 to 2 producers, but all of our member producers would benefit, in addition to producers in the area who are not members of our food hub. Small scale local producers often get overlooked, and this bill would bring them back to the table. Local food purchasing supports our local economy. The money that is spent with local farmers and growers stays close to home, and it is reinvested with businesses and services inside the community. I appreciate your support of this bill. We look forward to partnering once again with Feeding South Dakota on this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have 1 more online proponent. Debbie Whiff.
Hello, committee and chair. I'm Debbie Whip. Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you.
I'm Debbie Whip with the Spring Colony Käsemeister Creamery, and I'm here to support the House Bill 1147 for it's a nice opportunity to get the word out on our farm-to-table cheeses, and we're also very proud to share our homegrown fresh produce that we raise right nearby. And we strongly feel it's a win-win for those selling and purchasing South Dakota made products. We try to put all our effort into everything we do.
Thank you, Debbie. Are you finished? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us today. Okay, are there any additional proponents? All right, very good. Are there any opponents? Opponents to House Bill 1147. Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Chair. My name is Mitch Richter, and I represent the South Dakota United School Association. South Dakota is not currently funding K-12 at a statutory inflationary requirement. If we are unable to meet obligations already written into law, we should not be creating new general fund commitments, even one-time ones. Priorities matter. This is replacing federal cuts with state tax dollars. This shortfall exists because federal programs were reduced. The question is, should South Dakota taxpayers permanently backfill federal program reductions? If we begin replacing every federal rollback with general fund dollars, we could create an unstable precedent. Is this core state government function? Feeding South Dakota is a respected nonprofit, but it's still a nonprofit. Direct general fund appropriations to private charitable organizations blur the line between government responsibility, philanthropic responsibility, and federal responsibility. We should be cautious about converting private charity into a state-funded program. According to the 2024 IRS 990s, Feeding South Dakota in 2024 had $32.6 million in revenue, $32.9 million in expenses. This is a large organization with a strong fundraising capacity and volunteer infrastructure. Before appropriating $5 million or $1.5 million, lawmakers should ask what reserves exist, what internal cost controls have been implemented, what restructuring has been considered. One-time funding often becomes a reoccurring expectation. The bill calls this a reset. But once the state steps in, it becomes far more difficult politically to say no. In federal funds, do we return in 2 years? If the federal funds do not return in 2 years, will we be asked again and again? This sets a precedent for future emergency appropriations to private organizations experiencing funding shortfalls. Do you expect that Meals on Wheels will be here next year? Because I know their program could use some influx in money. Requiring $1.5 million to be spent on local farmers turns this into a targeted agricultural subsidy through a nonprofit pass-through. If the legislature wants to support producers, that debate should occur transparently through agriculture policy, not through a charitable food grant structure. We all support feeding hungry South Dakotans. The question is whether the general fund should become the backstop for federal programs cuts and nonprofit shortfalls. This is a precedent we should approach very cautiously. Until we fully fund our statutory commitments like K-12 education, and we should be careful about creating new general fund appropriations outside core government functions. This committee's role is not to question the mission of Feeding South Dakota. It is to determine whether the general fund should absorb the impact of federal fund reductions to a private nonprofit. This is a structural budget decision and one that deserves careful consideration. I'd support you opposing 1147. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional opponents? Any additional opponents to 1147? All right. Online? No. Rebuttal from the sponsor.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Representative Eric Mucky, I'll reiterate a point that I made when we moved the amendment on this. There's a real pathway for us looking forward to say there is clearly federal gaps that are not covering our obligations when it comes to the TFAP program that's delivered through the Department of Education. And this bill is, as amended, is a one-time funding source to address a problem that is likely going to be resolved within the next 2 to 3 years with the USDA. So providing that backstop in the short run for producers who've been growing for our food banks, or should say food bank, singular statewide food bank, is an important issue for us to take forward. And I appreciate the comments. I'm a very strong advocate for K-12 education, and I always have been, and you probably have heard me talk about that quite a bit here in this room too. One of the things I think is important for us to acknowledge is that the opposition is correct. We do need to find our obligations for K-12 education. At the same time, those same students who are going through are part of this system as well that are being served by our statewide food bank, Feeding South Dakota. And it's also important for us to understand that this isn't just a backstop for a federal program. We're talking about a partnership. We're talking about a partnership between local producers and our food bank to grow food for our state, whether that's beef from the ranch or crops at a crop farm, but also looking ahead to say, we have clearly a gap here, and we've talked about this many times as a committee. The folks from Feeding South Dakota have appeared before us many times. And so, again, for this, in regard to the opposition, just know that I will be bringing that motion sheet to try to attempt to address that gap in the TFAP funding within the Department of Education budget when we get to budget setting. But this $1.5 million is a one-time program meant to spread over enough time to restore the local food purchase assistance program while we advocate to the USDA to restore it. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll respectfully ask for your support for House Bill 1147 as amended.
Thank you. Open up for committee questions. Committee questions. Any further discussion and/or action?
Mr. Chair, I move do pass.
We have a motion by Senator Miskimmons and seconded by Representative Moore. Representative Mucky. Oh, Representative Mucky seconded it. Discussion on the motion.
Mr. Chair, substitute motion.
Representative Jorgensen.
I move we table.
We have a substitute motion to table by Representative Jorgensen, seconded by Senator Voida. That is a non-debatable motion. Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators and Representatives Miskimmons,
Nay.
Elk,
Aye.
Casson, Moore, Billhauer, Carly, Voida, Jorgensen, Howard, Foster, Sharda,
Aye.
Mucky,
No.
Zickman, Colbeck,
No.
Norstrup,
Aye.
Lapke, Foster, Otten,
Aye.
Derby,
Aye.
10 yea, 6 nay, 2 absent.
Motion to table hereby passes. Thank you very much. Moving on to House Bill 1150. Make an appropriation to increase the rate of payment for federally qualified health centers. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members. Tim Wahlberg, District 8 from Madison. This morning I bring to you House Bill 1150. House Bill 1150 is to address some critical funding gap for the federally qualified healthcare centers across our state. Community healthcare centers like Horizon Health in my district and throughout many of your districts play a critical role in providing access to medical, dental, and behavioral health care across our state. They are critical health care providers to ensure the access to rural and underserved communities. Current reimbursement rates for the services in the community health care centers were set based on the cost of their services over 20 years ago. Community health centers are currently being reimbursed at a 60% rate, while others are much higher. One thing I would like to tell you is some of these healthcare centers that we are serving in our rural communities, some of them in my district and others, they just have sometimes enough cash to go every other week or every month to keep their services open at that funding rate of 60% when others are higher. There are key people in the community within the healthcare centers with me today who can provide you with some specifics about the rate care and the rates that could be paid with the funding proposed. And I would like to say, as they come up and talk, think just a minute, because a lot of our centers have physician assistants and nurse practitioners, which were all great. But some of these elderly people that live in this area would actually like to see a regular MD sometimes. In trying to get this level up to where the other centers are, can hopefully attract those MDs. So yield some other time and then come back. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional proponents for House Bill 1150.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Liz Schenkel, and I'm with Community Healthcare Association of the Dakotas. We serve as the primary care association for federally qualified health centers, also commonly referred to as either FQHCs or health centers. FQHCs in South Dakota serve over 126,000 patients in over 31 communities, many of which are rural and frontier. Services provided include primary care, dental, and behavioral health. We believe in care that is proactive, that keeps people well, and allows them to access care in their communities. FQHC's mission and federal mandate is to see everyone in need of care, regardless of their insurance status or ability to pay. Over 40% of our health center patients are either on Medicaid or uninsured. And per our federal mandate, we simply cannot balance our payer mix like a private independent clinic can. We must serve anyone that is in need of care. Right now, Medicaid reimbursement rates for FQHCs only cover about 60% of the cost to deliver that care. That means when a patient on Medicaid is served, health centers are hemorrhaging money to provide them care. This has led to health centers closing sites and reducing services across the state. You can see the closures and site reductions on the handout being provided. Closures and service reductions were only considered after processes were optimized for efficiency. There were pay cuts at health centers, there were layoffs, and other tough decisions were made by each health center board. Health centers have always stretched their dollars and been good stewards, but no amount of good stewardship can make up for a 40% deficit in the cost to deliver care. Over the past 2 years, the department, CHAD, and health center leaders have worked together to assess reimbursement rates and methodologies to address this funding gap between service cost and reimbursement. DSS hired a consultant who determined that our current reimbursement rates are inadequate to sustain care. After those third-party findings and recommendations, CHAD continued to work with DSS and established a fair rate for FQHCs. They just haven't been adopted into the budget yet. We are really grateful for our work with the department. The department has been great and accommodating and fair in assessing our needs, and we are hopeful that we can find a way to get those added into the budget, which is what we are seeking to do with House Bill 1150. The legislative body talks about finding ways to save money, and I would argue FQHCs have been designed to do exactly that. Since their inception, they have been exemplifying stewardship by managing chronic conditions and keeping people well in the primary care setting so they don't need more expensive higher levels of care. Studies suggest that people who receive their care at federally qualified health centers cost the overall healthcare system 24% less than people who get their care in other primary settings. In South Dakota, FQHCs serve about 1 in 5 patients on Medicaid, yet make up for less than 1% of the overall DSS budget. FQHCs generate jobs and substantial economic impact. They keep small-town main streets alive, and they care for people in areas where other providers don't, seeing a high percentage of Medicaid patients that don't have a place to go. They are proven good stewards who provide high-quality, essential care to sustaining South Dakota. Please support adequate Medicaid reimbursement rates so we can continue to operate. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional proponents for House Bill 1150.
Good morning. My name is Wade Erickson. I'm the CEO for Horizon Health. We operate federally qualified health centers across 28,000 square miles of South Dakota. Just virtually every corner other than the far northeast portion of the state. Really bringing primary health care local where rural and frontier, mainly for us, is rural and frontier communities. And really what my support for this bill is obviously the 60%. When you're funded at 60% of the cost to provide that care with rates that haven't kept up with inflationary needs, it becomes extremely difficult, and difficult decisions follow. As you heard Liz just mention, there were site closures. Unfortunately, 4 of them were mine at the beginning of 25. We had to discontinue 3 of our medical sites and 1 of our dental locations across the state. This has become super challenging for us to sustain and to continue at 60% of what the reimbursement is right now of the cost to provide that care. As she stated, we also worked with the state and the Secretary Althoff and DSS, a very, very good process where they brought in consultants and did a rate review, something that hadn't been done. So we applaud for that and the opportunity to be part of that process. That process proved what we already knew, that it's unsustainable in the current model to continue to have the 28,000 square mile footprint that we have today. A lot of these people living in very rural and frontier areas are the farmers or the ranchers that are putting food on our tables, that we don't want to have to sacrifice their ability to receive basic primary health care services. Our specialty care can be done over telehealth. That's a big opportunity to keep those people home working and not taking a day off of work. As stated, we did everything we could efficiently to try and avoid the site closures. We had to cut some staff, we had to take pay cuts, we had to take all kinds of strategies to try and maintain the access, as access being the last choice for us to be able to stay stable. Cash reserves are non-existent. We are totally operating payroll to payroll every 2 weeks to maintain that access to care. And still, even after the cuts, we're still operating on no margin or negative margin today. There's got to be more changes coming. There's got to be more types of efficiency implemented. But really, our goal is to not have to reduce access or services again. So I respectfully ask, the committee to support 1150. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional proponents? Any additional proponents? Any online? Okay, seeing none, move on to opponents. Opponents for House Bill 1150. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Kate Schnabel with the Bureau of Finance and Management. As you've heard this morning, House Bill 1150 would appropriate one-time general and federal funds to increase the reimbursement rate for FQHCs. While we understand the challenges that these facilities are facing, this bill seeks to provide rate increases that are ongoing in nature. However, House Bill 1150 funds it with one-time dollars. It's been a long-held budget practice that we fund one-time expenses with one-time money and ongoing expenses with ongoing money. Since revenues were adopted, there is growth in ongoing funding for FY27. If I can have a bit of leniency, Mr. Chair, if this is a priority for the legislature, I think the appropriate path is through the motion sheet process to be included in the General Appropriations Act rather than as a standalone special appropriation. Including the funding in the general bill ensures that this is funded in a sustainable way in the future. For these reasons, I ask that you please oppose House Bill 1150. Thank you, and I'll stand by for questions.
Thank you. Additional opposition? Any additional opponents? Any additional opponents? Seeing none? Rebuttal by the sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. I appreciate you hearing us out today. One thing that I just want to mention real quick, when this was drafted with LRC, this was drafted with the intent that this was ongoing and not one-time funds. And so if I do have an email that does state that, be happy to share it. But it's my understanding, Mr. Chair, that we have some other works in place, and I would like to table this with the understanding that this is proceeding forward.
Representative Mucky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will move to table at this time.
Motion by Representative Mucky, second by Representative Colbeck to table. That is a non-debatable motion. Secretary, call the roll.
Senators and Representatives, Ms. Skimmons.
Aye.
Auk.
Aye.
Casson. Moore.
Aye.
Philhauer. Carly. Voida. Jorgensen. Howard. Foster. Sharda.
Aye.
Mucky.
Aye.
Zickman. Colbeck.
Aye.
Norstrup. Lapke. Otten. Derby.
Aye.
16 yea, 2 absent.
Motion to table House Bill 1150 hereby passes. Moving on to House Bill 1261, provide a tax credit for owner-occupied property, to make an appropriation therefore, and to transfer monies to the general fund. Good morning and welcome to Appropriations.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's great to be with you. My name is John Hanson. I'm the Speaker of the House. I'm representative of District 25, and it's an honor to bring before you today House Bill 1261. If I can ask, Mr. Chair, I would appreciate if the committee would move an amendment. It's 1261A.
Is that been online, posted?
It is online.
Okay. Motion by Senator Howard, second by Representative Casson. Okay. Any discussion on the motion to amend? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
I appreciate it very much. And so House Bill 1261 is really aimed at what I think many of us recognize as one of the biggest problems that we face as a state right now, which is excessive property taxes. And I think when we talk to our constituents across the state, we hear it. And I know from about 2020 to today, the problem has only increased. And the people are really looking for some form of relief for the excessive strain of high property taxes. And so House Bill 1261 is aimed at providing some relief. Now, this would be one-time relief. And so, as you can see before you in House Bill 1261, this would propose, the numbers have now changed, but this would propose to take some money from the Housing Infrastructure Fund, some money from our savings, and use that as one-time relief for property taxpayers. A couple things about that. Number one, I do think that the people of the state are not just looking for a one-time relief, that they're looking for ongoing relief. But I also think that this particular kind of proposal can be utilized as something combined with maybe some ongoing relief along with a one-time shot of relief. And those conversations are continuing to happen with our members in this building. And so I think that's an important part of your consideration as you consider whether to keep this moving through the process. And the other thing is just in particular on utilization of the housing funds. As you all know, the housing fund was enacted by this legislature for the purpose of housing in South Dakota. And at the time, it was thought that loans for infrastructure would be the best way to sort of ease the burden of some of the housing constraints that we were feeling back then. Well, as you all know, that fund is still sitting with about $60 million in unutilized money. And so one of the things that tells me is that's just not the best use of our state dollars, the people's money, when it comes to solving the housing crisis in South Dakota. Now, fast forward today, what is the number one issue facing homeowners in the state? It's high property taxes. And so I think using maybe some of that money would be an appropriate use in order to address the concerns of the people of the state, specifically relative to housing. And so, as I said, we continue to have conversations about what we're going to try to do to address property taxes. I do believe that something like this mechanism can be a part of maybe a bigger package that we're able to put together and hopefully deliver to the people. And so for that reason, I appreciate the amendment, and I would ask this committee to continue it on in the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Additional proponents for House Bill 1261. Additional proponents? Any additional proponents online? Okay. Seeing none. Opponents. Opponents for House Bill 1261. Opponents. Good morning.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Julie Johnson. I'm a lawyer from near Aberdeen and the registered lobbyist, in this case, for a nonprofit group coalition called Homes for South Dakota. They are the nonprofit housing agencies that develop homes and take care of our people all across South Dakota. I only recently became aware of this bill, unfortunately. A couple of things about the Housing Infrastructure Fund. My clients developed the idea of the Housing Infrastructure Fund, brought it to a very well positioned interim committee of the legislature in 2021, and then in 2022 and 23 it became law in South Dakota. So the funds have not been sitting there for very long. My clients are the kinds of people that will be helping developers apply for those funds. So we're very vested in this particular bill, and my clients would also tell you they still have applications that are on deck ready to come to the fund. A couple of tidbits that probably need to be on the record as well include the fact that Senate Bill 76 is coming toward the House. It's already passed the Senate on a 22-11 vote. That's the bill that takes $30 million for Sioux Falls and Rapid City airports and leaves the rest of the money in the Housing Infrastructure Fund. So we're already sweeping $30 million from the Housing Infrastructure Fund by virtue of that. My clients did not oppose the airports part of it. My clients were involved in helping be sure that the remnants, the payments from all of that do go back into the Housing Infrastructure Fund, because there are applications on deck, there are pending applications, and there's many on deck ready to come in the door as well. Also, Senate Bill 204, also I call it the tweak bill. It tweaks the rules on the fund, the Housing Infrastructure Fund. That is coming toward the House as well. It passed the Senate the other day, 20-13. So I can tell you there is demand for these funds. There's not $60 million just sitting there. No one should get the conclusion that there's money just sitting there not being used. And I would tell you also that in a lot of communities around South Dakota, the other demand is for affordable housing. That issue has not gone away in the middle of your property tax concerns. So with that, I would urge caution on this. That should not be viewed as a funding source at this point in time. It was very carefully crafted and is being well administered. It is not a cash situation from my client's vantage point. We'd appreciate your help with that. I'll be happy to provide any additional information you may need. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional opponents. Additional opponents.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Rich Rave, Greater Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce. You know, it wasn't super long ago that I was actually a Senate intern in appropriations, and my mentors back then told me one of the #1 rule is we don't use one-time funds for ongoing expenses. And I think all of you are very aware of that and play by that rule book, right? That's what this bill is doing, using one-time money to do a one-time bailout for property taxes, and then what? Then when the money's gone, then you're inflated even more than what you just paid down, and you're gonna have more people with sticker shock on their bill, on their property tax assessment. That doesn't make any sense to me as someone who is a student of this body. I think the other thing I would say is, you know, what does this do for renters? I'm a renter. Doesn't help me. It doesn't give me any relief to try to save money to buy a house, which I'd love to do. Doesn't help anyone who's in multi-housing. Doesn't help anyone who's in commercial. It doesn't help our ag producers. I don't understand the one targeted piece of this. It really doesn't help people who are trying to buy a home. And that's what the Housing Infrastructure Fund is meant to do, is meant to build homes so that there's more supply and that folks like me who want to buy a home have that pathway and that it's not so inflated and the costs come down and there's more access to housing. This is going backwards, in my opinion. We need to keep the housing infrastructure fund. We need to build more. We need to open those opportunities to folks and not do a one-time bailout. So with that, I'd stand down and urge your opposition. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional opponents? Any additional opponents? Any additional opponents? Any online? Seeing no additional opponents, I would open up for rebuttal by the sponsor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. John Hanson, Speaker of the House, District 25. And I'll just be really brief. And as I said in my remarks earlier, and I won't try to repeat any of that, but I do think that, well, first of all, if it's a rebate program like it's currently contemplated under this particular piece of legislation, that's actually not an ongoing expense. It's a one-time thing. If we are going to do some, as I said earlier, I'll just reiterate this. If this legislature is able to come up with some form of ongoing relief for property taxes, a mechanism like this could be used to prime the pump in the early stages. And so I do think it's appropriate. I think you shouldn't just consider it a one-time thing. You should consider it maybe a one-time sort of priming the pump for something that we might be able to accomplish later in the future. And so for those reasons, I would be very grateful if you would send this out to the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We'll open it up for committee questions. Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, Julie answered the question I was going to ask both her and Mitch about not opposing spending $30 million out of this housing fund for airports, but my question to Mitch would be the same. Because you made the statement that this should be used for housing, do you support or oppose spending $30 million of it for airports?
Mr. Chair, thank you for the question, Senator. I would say that I understand your point, your question, and it's a good one. That money would be used for public infrastructure. Airports are public infrastructure, and I'm a little latitude here, Mr. Chair. I've talked to another bill a little bit. You know, when we talk about, I think it's Senate Bill 76. That's public infrastructure, that's public use. 95.5% of air travel in the state of South Dakota goes through the Rapid City and Sioux Falls airports. While it's not housing, it is critical infrastructure, and it is something that our growing cities need. And I'm not talking about growing down the road. We have outgrown those facilities. So that is why we do support that from that aspect of this is housing infrastructure money. That is infrastructure. Is it housing? No, but it is critical infrastructure. Does that answer your question, Senator?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, follow up.
Just a comment, if I may. I find it very frustrating that the opponents to this were all in favor of using $30 million out of this for airport funding, which is never traditionally a state-funded issue, but they're opposed to spending a housing fund on housing and keeping people and helping them stay in their homes. So I really struggle with that.
Representative Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This would probably be a question for Julie.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here. Just the question is, on Senate Bill 76 that just passed yesterday, that infrastructure money, that $30 million, you said was going to be taken out of that fund. That money, if I read this bill correctly, that stays in the infrastructure fund. It was amended to 2%, and the airports, if this goes through, the airports pay that money back to the Housing Infrastructure Fund to be used for future developments of infrastructure, housing infrastructure. And I just want you to clarify that to be sure that I am correct on that, so that we know that that money is not being taken out of that fund for that purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie Johnson again. Thank you, Representative Colbeck, for the question. Yes, my clients decided not to get ahead of the airports, but they did draw the line at not replenishing the fund. So that's why the language was changed between the first draft of 76 and the one that passed the Senate the other day. So the earnings from those are loans from the fund, go back to the fund. and can be made available for additional housing infrastructure use into the future. I hope that helps.
Follow up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could, the next question would be for the sponsor of the bill. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A year ago in this committee, we passed a bill that gave the Douglas School District 15 million, 0% interest for infrastructure to their school. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
so explain to me what the difference is between Senate Bill 76 and the bill that we passed last year for the infrastructure to go to the Douglas School District that will be repaid and will go back into that fund, other than the interest that was tacked onto the Senate Bill 76 yesterday. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. John Hanson, Speaker of the House. So I think you just identified really the difference, which is that that was a loan. That money will go out to fund whatever construction that they're doing with the school, and that money will eventually come back into the fund, and I think that was a zero interest loan. In this particular case, that wouldn't be what would happen. We would take the money from the fund and we would remove it from the fund.
Follow up?
Thank you. The money that will go to the airports if passed will be paid back to the fund as well as the money that was loaned to the district in the Douglas School District. So in both cases, that money will eventually, over a period of 20 years, and I believe Douglas was set at 20 years, that money eventually will come back to that infrastructure fund.
Mr. Chairman. Yes, as long as they're good for it.
Okay. Additional questions from the committee? Representative Mucky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Speaker, as you're talking about your concept of what future rebates would look like, can you explain to us how you would accomplish that?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So I think there are, a couple different mechanisms that we could do, but, predominantly what this anticipates is you can see in Section 4 that the Department of Revenue shall approve vouchers to the state auditor, who shall draw warrants to pay expenditures authorized under this act. And so how I anticipate that would look if this were the mechanism that we utilize is essentially the auditors would submit to the Department of Revenue the amount of money based on the amount of homes in the particular county. And then the auditors would just essentially deduct that from property tax payments.
Additional questions from the committee? Additional questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public testimony and open up for committee discussion and or action. Senator Howard.
I would move do pass on House Bill 1261.
Second.
As amended.
Yes.
Do pass motion
As
from
amended.
Senator Howard, seconded by Representative Auk, to pass House Bill 1261 as amended. Discussion on the motion.
Well, I would just say there is no better use of a fund that was created for housing than helping homeowners stay in their homes. I mean, you guys have heard me say this before. We need broad relief, something that helps every homeowner. This does that. Yes, it's one-time funds, but it could bridge the gap before SB 96 kicks into place. I mean, it's just a little something to show the citizens that we hear you and that we're trying to do something. So I would urge your support on this, and then I hope we amend it back up to a very sizable amount.
Senator Vilhauer.
Mr. Chair, I spoke against and voted against this the summer study this past summer. I'm still against it. This is not a broad-based tax relief program. So I don't care if it's $60 million or $101, I'm opposed to this.
Representative Mucky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to pontificate too much on the purpose of a housing infrastructure fund, but I want to make something really clear. When we're talking about taking out for one-time uses from a fund that has no time bounding in terms of its usage for housing infrastructure, I have a very significant problem with that. And that's not to say that I necessarily am supportive of saying we need to loan things out from this fund either. I'm not, that's not what my point is. My point is, if we're going to look at this housing infrastructure fund, as there is legislation now being pursued to change the definitions of how it can be used for housing infrastructure so it can be deployed more effectively, this funding has no time bounding to it, and we can actually probably long-term accomplish more with those loans by being able to focus on what the intent of the fund was. And so with that, I respect the good speaker's approach in trying to provide tax relief. I just don't think this is a way to accomplish that, and if anything, we're taking a one-time approach to a fund that can fundamentally change South Dakota for the future. So I will respectfully not support this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker as well.
Further discussion? Representative Norstrop.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Being from Aberdeen, very familiar with the Happy Fund. It's been wonderful. It's built a lot of good houses in Aberdeen, and I fully support that. I think I'll be a yes vote, and the reason I'll be a yes vote is at the dollar amount that it's at, it will do no damage to housing, and it will keep the conversation going, and that's the main point, is to keep the conversation going. As we work through this process, there's a possibility the sponsor will find great ways to improve the bill, and we look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I would like to echo Mr. Weiss's comments on regards to the process and what we're trying to do here. We are in the midst of a property tax relief discussion, and this is just one idea and one tool in the tool belt, and it has been amended down to $101 to continue the discussion. Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, Secretary, call the roll.
Senators and Representatives, Ms. Skimmons.
Nay.
Alk.
Aye.
Casson. Aye. Moore.
Aye.
Billhauer. No. Carly.
Aye.
Voida. Aye. Jorgensen.
Aye.
Howard. Aye. Foster. Sharda.
Aye.
Mucky.
No.
Zickman. No. Colbeck.
No.
Norstrop.
Aye.
Lapke. Foster. Otten.
Aye.
Derby.
Aye.
11 yeas, 6 nays, 1 absent.
The do pass motion on House Bill 1261 as amended hereby passes. All right. We have 3 bills left, and we've got 45 minutes, so it's House Bill 1293, make an appropriation for increasing the benefit amounts of the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program and to declare an emergency. Good morning again, Representative. Please identify yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Representative Eric Mucky, District 15, downtown North Central Sioux Falls. I'm here to present to you today House Bill 1293, an act to increase funding amounts for a TANF program. We've had a lot of conversation about TANF here in this committee, so just to reiterate what the program does. Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. It is a federal block grant program that we have state partnership on. In practice, it primarily focuses on 2 uses at the state level in South Dakota. So direct cash assistance so children can be cared for at home or with relatives. That's our primary use in South Dakota. Our secondary use is something that I know we just had conversations about yesterday. So particularly work supports, job training, employment help, transportation, childcare, programs like JAG. That's been a primary support. So TANF, South Dakota does not use TANF for 2 other uses. There's 2 other allowable uses. TANF is a temporary and time-limited program, so over your lifetime, you can only participate in TANF for up to 60 months. TANF serves about 2,487 families right now in South Dakota, and I want to make sure that I highlight a little bit about the structure before I dive into the bill itself. South Dakota today receives about $21.2 million from the federal government to support TANF. That money is available to us through a minimum maintenance of effort, so an MOE amount that we as a state provide. That amount is $8.54 million. If any federal TANF dollars are unspent, South Dakota can build a federally held carryover reserve, which we have today. That can be access later for TANF allowable purposes. Prior to this fiscal year, that TANF reserve was somewhere in the realm of about $24 million. So when you think about that number, that's approximately what we would receive on an annual basis from the federal government. Now, the point of the TANF carryover is to help states maintain benefits and stability when conditions change, and it's a cushion when times are tough. TANF as a program, the thrust of it, or what it actually is, has dated back to the era of the Depression, but the name Temporary Assistance for Needy Families was adopted in 1996. So the structure of this program today was formed then. Why I'm here today to talk to you about House Bill 1293 is something that happened in our session last year. So when it was presented, when we presented the Department of Social Services budget for TANF, in writing and verbally, the budget was presented as a fund swap. We reduced $5.3 million in our general fund towards the maintenance of effort, and we raised $5.3 million in federal fund expenditure authority for the purposes of using our TANF reserves. That was a pointed effort to make sure in a really tough budget year, how do we maintain benefits as well as we know how to. When we looked at the internal budget materials, it appeared as a fund swap line item. It's something that we had discussed in committee, and when I asked directly during a budget hearing, it was clear when we asked the question, would services be reduced? The answer was in two parts. There was an examination of benefits and options to be produced, but the plan at the time was not to cut, it was to swap funds. However, outside of the appropriations process last summer, we saw a 10% reduction in benefits. In real terms, what that means is a family of three went from $696 a month to $626 a month. Family of four went from $781 a month to $703 a month. So we're talking about folks that are really in poverty, around 30% of the poverty line. This is really challenging to look at. And the savings that was proposed to us is about $1.5 million annually. So less than about 7% of the $24 million TANF reserve. When we have the funds available to us, fellow appropriators, I want you to think about this. We did not make a cut motion last year. We reduced general funds and we replaced it with federal expenditure authority, but we did not cut benefits. That process occurred outside of this room. So my point to you with this bill, we need to restore. Part of the challenge I'm looking at as we look at our DSS detailed budget brief, based on their projections in the detailed budget brief today, there's expected to be about 2.5% more cases based on the numbers presented to us. About 2,584 cases were listed for this year's plan. In the next fiscal year, it's looking to be in projection from our detailed brief, 2,648. Unfortunately, I also see a 10% decrease presented in that as well. That 10% decrease would mean an average of about $470.39 to $423.35 per month per household. There's a very significant problem with that because we're not able to see that in the budget today. So when we're talking about motion sheets in our current DSS budget brief, there's no mention of TANF. We're not changing anything, but as more folks access this program, those benefits are going to be reduced naturally. But it will also likely require a policy change within the Rules Committee, as was performed last summer, to reduce benefits further. So I'm bringing to you today this bill to highlight the two numbers, 5.3 million and 1.5 million. Those are the numbers you see in that bill right now. Now I plan to withdraw from this because I think it's important for me to state I will be bringing a motion sheet to you to discuss how we restore that $1.5 million that was reduced. I'm really proud that we have invested our TANF dollars in things like JAG. It's a really valuable program for our kids, and this cash assistance is helping families all over the state. Many of them may be nameless and voiceless because they are in deep poverty. They may not be able to come here, and for those children who are supported in that program, odds are they're not going to be coming up here to testify. So what I want to make sure I highlight, this committee did not cut TANF benefits, but we have an opportunity right now to look at this very carefully in the motion sheet process and restore benefits that we did not choose to cut. With that, Mr. Chair, my request for this bill as of this time is I would request for this bill to be tabled immediately.
Representative Casson.
I move we table HB 1293.
Second, motion by Representative Casson, second by Senator Foster. This is a non-debatable motion. Secretary, call the roll.
Senators and Representatives, Ms. Gimmons.
Aye.
Elk.
Aye.
Casson. Moore.
Aye.
Billhauer. Carly.
Aye.
Voida. Jorgensen. Howard. Foster. Sharda.
Aye.
Mucky.
Aye.
Zickman. Colbeck.
Aye.
Norstrup.
Aye.
Lapke. Otten.
Aye.
Derby.
Aye.
17 yea, 1 absent.
Motion to table House Bill 1293 hereby passes. Thank you. And moving on to Senate Bill 213. Create the Building Opportunity Through Out-of-School Time Program and the Building Opportunity Through Out-of-School Time Program Fund. Authorize a new fee, make an appropriation therefore, and transfer monies to the Building Opportunity Through Out-of-School Time Program Fund. Welcome, Senator. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Liz Larson from District 10. Senator, on the Senate side here, before I get started on this rather longly titled bill, I do have an amendment that I'd like to move, or I'd ask somebody to move, which is 213B.
We have a motion to amend by Senator Howard, seconded by Representative Casson. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We
Great.
are now on Senate Bill 213 as amended.
Yep, thank you so much. Appreciate that. And I'll discuss the bill as amended. So 213 makes an appropriation to the Department of Education to establish a fund called the Opportunity Out-of-School Care Grant Program, which is focused on expanding out-of-school time programming across South Dakota. The bill originally contained a one-time appropriation of $2.5 million, as well as an ongoing funding mechanism. This amendment we just passed strips out that one-time funding portion, but keeps the ongoing funding and the program itself. So the ongoing funding mechanism comes from business annual reporting fees, and we'll get into that. I'll get into that in a minute. But the bill is overall about meeting the very practical needs for working families, supporting healthy youth development, and strengthening our long-term workforce pipeline. And I have a lineup of individuals who will speak after me on the impact this can have on kids. But just at the very high level, I'll just discuss why this matters so much in South Dakota. Out-of-school programs offered structured, supervised environments for students during the hours of school while their parents are still at work. This includes after-school programming, and it also includes summertime programming. As such, these are both a workforce and an education issue. And more importantly, they represent the long-term investment in our communities, providing immediate support to working families and children while also strengthening the broader economy overall. So also from an incarceration perspective, these programs disrupt that school-to-prison pipeline, or so the research says, and they've been linked also with reducing recidivism over the long haul. In South Dakota, the need for these programs among students and their parents is very significant, and that need is growing, and it's currently unmet. Our constituents, who are parents, have been constantly saying that this is a critical need for years, and we've still not been able to adequately provide a set of solutions for them. So that's why this bill exists. It's a way to get at that expressed need. So these programs have been consistently proven to help young people increase their academic performance, build social skills through collaboration, develop healthy habits, confidence, and career ideas, as well as life skills, and keep kids out of trouble during these vulnerable hours. And again, like disrupt that school-to-prison pipeline that we hear of. These programs are also among the most effective tools that we have for reducing any type of risky behavior during after-school hours, which are also consistently shown to be the highest risk time of day for youth. Parents who take advantage of these many great programs that we do have already in existence here in South Dakota also value these programs. After School Alliance reports that 99% of parents are satisfied with the after-school program that they're using. 87% of parents report peace of mind knowing that their children are supervised after school. And 83% report that after-school programs help them keep their jobs. For many families, after-school care or summer care is not optional. It is a prerequisite for employment. So despite the strong demand and the proven outcomes, access to these things in South Dakota remains insufficient. For every one child enrolled in an after-school program in South Dakota, 2 are on the waiting list, and that demand has been increasing in recent years. Right now, we have almost 23,000 children who are unsupervised after school in our state. And over the past decade, that number has grown by more than 5,000. So there's not a lack of interest from families, it's just a capacity and an affordability issue. So the bill isn't about kids, it's about workforce participation, economic stability. This would allow parents to work full-time and maintain those consistent schedules, reduce absenteeism and job instability in the workforce, support upward mobility by helping families stay connected to the labor market, and at the same time, these programs help build hands-on skills and that career awareness for young students. So this is a targeted and scalable investment that leverages existing providers and infrastructure while allowing DOE to distribute the funds based on demonstrated need and community capacity. And with that, I will hand it over to a couple of colleagues to explain this further.
Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Mike Bockrany. I'm here this morning representing a number of different organizations. First, the South Dakota Education Association for the Education of Young Children is their registered lobbyist. I also am the registered lobbyist for the Aberdeen Chamber of Commerce, Aberdeen Development Corporation, and I also serve as the CEO of the Economic Development Professionals Association of South Dakota. We rise in favor of this legislation. For the past few years, 3 years now, I've had the privilege of serving on the statewide child care task force. This task force has worked on all things in child care, which includes out-of-school time. My time working with this group has been eye-opening, to say the least. Today we have a chance to make a difference. I'm going to leave the details of the specifics of how the bill will work to those who follow me. I'm going to focus this morning on the why. Why do we need this, and how do we know we need this? Just last week, I received the South Dakota Out-of-School Time Task Force report, which we'd worked on for over the last year. And it shows that there are, in South Dakota right now, over 42,000 school-age children in our state who would participate in an after-school program if one were available, accessible, and affordable. At the same time, approximately 81% of children live in households where all available parents are working. When school lets out at 3 p.m., parents obviously usually still at work. The gap of time has to be filled by something. If it's not filled by structured, high-quality programming, it gets filled by unsupervised time. More than 32,000 South Dakota children, according to the report, are alone and unsupervised between 3 and 6 p.m. Those are peak hours for juvenile crime and risky behavior. High-quality nonprofit out-of-school time providers such as Boys and Girls Clubs, YMCAs, school-based community learning centers, tribal programs, faith-based nonprofits are not simply childcare. They are more. They are structured environments with trained staff, mentoring adults, academic support, enrichment, and positive peer enrichment. All the research that we have collected over the past few years show that youth placed in community-based support areas experience better outcomes than those entering the alternate. Unfortunately, some of these, the research also shows, end up being incarcerated as they get older. The average cost, our report shows, is $88,000 annually for a youth. By comparison, after-school programming costs averages $3,306 per year per child. It's not just a moral argument, it's good fiscal prudence. We also believe strongly in quality. Quality matters, which is why we need this. When programs are aligned with school day learning and staffed by trained professionals, students improve academically and behaviorally. Statistics show that students with low GPAs improve. They improve in reading. They improve in math. Chronically absent students increase attendance by over 40%. Nonprofit providers also cultivate developmental relationships with caring adults, a proven protective factor against risky behavior. Youth who are engaged in structured extracurricular programming are far less likely to use substances, less likely to have unexcused absences, and are more likely to graduate. South Dakota parents report that after-school programs help keep them in their job at a better position 78% of the time. They also report providing peace of mind regarding their child's safety because they know where they are, because they are supervised. When these parents know their children are in a safe, structured, supervised nonprofit environment and not home alone, not roaming neighborhoods, not exposed to negative influences, it's quite simply, they are more productive at work. They are less stressed, they stay in the labor force, employers benefit, communities benefit. We currently rely heavily on federal funding streams and have no consistent state-level funding commitment for out-of-school time. This creates instability for these nonprofit providers who are on the front lines of keeping our kids safe and productive. Investing in high-quality, nonprofit-led out-of-school time programming is workforce policy, it's public safety policy, it's business development policy, and it's education policy. This bill strengthens safe environments for children, it supports working families, increases business outputs, reduces long-term correctional costs, and reinforces the nonprofit community partners already doing the work. We thank you for your support this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Additional proponents. Senate Bill 213.
Mr. Chairman,
morning.
members of the committee, Jennifer Stalley on behalf of the Boys and Girls Club of South Dakota Alliance, and I want to associate my remarks or my support for this bill with everything that the previous speaker said and just focus in very quickly on the mechanics of the bill. So this is a very tailored approach and a very specific way that these funds could be used. When you look in Section 1, it's talking about a grant program that has to be focused on academic support, addressing negative behaviors, career exploration, and providing a safe environment in an after-school setting. It also has to be provided, the grantees who would be eligible for this also have to be nonprofits. I think Mr. Bockerny went through a list of the eligible folks. We're looking to partner with your proven partners in this. We know that this is an area that people want to support, but we also know that there's always trepidation to make sure that the dollars are spent wisely and are accountable for. And so by making sure it's nonprofit versus for-profit workers in this space, we think that that helps to narrow the bill. It also requires a demonstration in Section 4 by a grantee of certain things before they'd be eligible. Most notably, it needs to increase access. It's not used to supplement existing programs. It's not used to pay for what's happening now. It has to demonstrate that they can increase access, that they have community support and participation from partners, and that they can engage those prospective student participants and other stakeholders in the development and implementation of their program. So I think that's a way of narrowing and making sure that we're very focused with this effort. The other thing that it does is it provides for accountability, and I know the importance of that by this committee when we look at any type of state dollars that are being used. That's in Section 7, which would require that there's an annual report to you as the Joint Appropriations Committee on exactly who got the dollars and how they used them. So the dollars themselves and how this would be funded in the amended version, the amendment that was brought forward by the sponsor removes the one-time money, but instead relies on a mechanism by which we would add a $35 or increase a $35 fee that all businesses pay when they file their annual reports with the Secretary of State. So every corporation in the state has to file an annual report. I file one for my business, many of you file them for your businesses. The Secretary of State is the pass-through for that to make sure that you have up-to-date information about that particular corporation. We're proposing in this bill that you would add or increase that fee by $35 so that you would fund up to or around between $2.5 and $3 million on an ongoing basis for this grant program. The amendment, I believe, delays the implementation of any grants for a year so that that fund can grow. But on an ongoing basis, the business community would be paying for this grant fund so that they can contribute, as Mr. Bockerny alluded to, into the funding source to make sure that there's safe and secure places for after school and out of school time. And then those programs would tie into those specific goals of academic success, career exploration, and addressing negative behaviors. And so those are the mechanics of the bill. We would ask for your support.
Thank you. additional proponents? Any additional proponents online?
Yeah. Yes, Chairman.
Yes, gentlemen, please state your name and begin.
Yep. Good morning, Chairman and members of the Joint Committee. I'm Mike Quast, here in Aberdeen, South Dakota. I am representing the Aberdeen Family YMCA. We provide after-school care to the Aberdeen School District as well as the Warner School District, and we have been approached to look at other rural communities to provide care. This would help us do just that, as funding is a major hurdle to do care outside of our area. I want to reiterate exactly what has already been spoken about. Providing care after school 3 to 6 every day is the peak time that we do see juvenile crime and risky behavior. This would keep our children safe in a supervised, engaged environment, and in the long run, it will reduce the strain on law enforcement and social services. Our parents are still working when school is dismissed, and having that reliable care really helps workforce participation. One thing that we do here in Aberdeen that is perhaps unique is we also provide bus transportation from the schools, as we do not have a busing system here in Aberdeen. This also will reduce absenteeism and turnover for employees. And as we know, childcare as a whole, there's a shortage across our state, which limits economic growth. In our programs, we provide homework help, which also helps with literacy reinforcement. We provide STEM and enrichment programs. We improve attendance and classroom behaviors through our programs that we offer, and it helps close the opportunity gaps that some children face. In our program, we build teamwork, leadership, and resilience. They have positive adult mentors, and they are in a safe place where they feel they belong. This helps reduce isolation and behavioral challenges. Our program works closely with the school district as well as mental health organizations to provide children that do struggle the best care possible. Really, the biggest prevention is often the cost. This would help us alleviate those cost challenges and get more children into our programs. This would help with equal access for those across our communities, both low and middle income, which oftentimes have the hardest time with being priced out. Overall, this will empower our youth, support our families, and promote healthy decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one other testifier online. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Chairs Derby and Otten, and members of the Joint Appropriations Committee. I'm Liz Brownell, and I am the CEO at the Boys and Girls Club in Watertown and a member of the South Dakota Alliance of Boys and Girls Clubs. The South Dakota Alliance represents the state's 53 Boys and Girls Clubs, serving over 18,000 youth members annually. Clubs serve youth ages 5 through 18 after school, on no school days, and during the summer. We represent metro, rural, tribal, and military organizations. Programs such as Boys and Girls Clubs are specifically designed to support student achievement, character and leadership development, and workforce readiness, while also addressing issues around juvenile delinquency and through diversion programs. So how would these funds help our South Dakota clubs? SB 213 would create new opportunities to serve more youth and support working parents. The funds would support staff mentoring costs, supplies, program materials, and assist with transportation expenses. Specialized staff members such as counselors, social workers, tutors, and youth diversion professionals would broaden our care and strengthen program quality to reduce those negative behaviors through prevention and mental health services. Just a moment to tell you about a few impact stories here in Watertown at our program. Last year, over 1,000 club members received academic enrichment programs, including hands-on STEM experiments, Lego leagues, and the use of virtual reality headsets to explore careers such as being a welder or an automotive technician. Youth have enjoyed field trips and job shadow tours, college visits, and programs to assist with resume building, and their job applications have helped our kids take the next steps they need to be productive adults in a challenging workforce. VISA funds will also allow us to continue providing life and skill building activities, including a lot of fun things, such as gardening, yoga sessions, cooking classes, jewelry making. All of these programs I mentioned keep kids on track to graduate, help with their summer learning loss, and foster independent learning. Lastly, this funding would assist with keeping club memberships low and affordable to all in the state. Many of our South Dakota Boys and Girls Clubs offer school year and summer programming for less than $1 a day. And this includes a full service food service program and physical wellness opportunities. Parents and supporters, they support this, and it is vital for a strong South Dakota economy. We have the proven ROI to support this investment. For every $1 that's invested in South Dakota Boys and Girls Clubs generates approximately $6.70 in economic and social benefits back to our youth, our families, and our communities. Boys and Girls Clubs have long-standing partnerships with this Department of Education, and we have the capacity to expand these out of school services. Please pass SB 213 to support proven results, expand our critical programs, and ensure the success of young people, their parents, our workforce, and our South Dakota economy. We are asking you to help us build the leaders our communities will rely on tomorrow. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Are there any additional proponents? Any additional proponents? Seeing none, we'll move on to opponents. Opponents of SB 213. Opponents. Are there any online? Okay. Seeing no opponents, we'll move to committee questions. Questions from the committee. Any questions from the committee? Representative Out.
Mr. Chair, I move to lay SB 213 on the table.
Who seconded that? We have a motion to table SB 213 by Representative Out, seconded by Senator Howard. That is a non-debatable motion. Secretary, call the roll.
Senators and Representatives, Ms. Skimmons.
Aye.
Elk.
Aye.
Casson. Moore.
No.
Philhauer. No. Carly.
Aye.
Voida. Aye. Jorgensen.
Aye.
Howard. Aye. Foster.
No.
Sharda.
Aye.
Mucky.
No.
Zickman. No. Colbeck.
Aye.
Norstrup.
Pass.
Lapke. Casson.
No.
Norstrup.
Aye.
Otten.
Aye.
Derby.
Aye.
11 yeas, 6 nays, 1 absent.
Motion to table Senate Bill 213 hereby passes. Thank you. Moving on, Senate Bill 231. Create the Water Infrastructure Development Fund to provide an appropriation to provide for the awarding of grants and loans from the fund for certain rural water projects and to declare an emergency. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Chairman. Helene Duhamel, District 32, Rapid City. Thank you all. So glad to be back. Senate Bill 231 is about responsibility. It's about foresight, and it's about whether we prepare today or force our children to scramble tomorrow. I think of it as our water savings account or our piggy bank. Water infrastructure does not fail at once. It ages quietly. Pipes corrode. Pumps wear out. Treatment systems fall behind modern standards. When we ignore that reality, the cost does not disappear, it multiplies. This bill creates the Water Infrastructure Development Fund. In simple terms, it is a savings account for South Dakota's water future. This fund will be built from legislative appropriations, federal grants, interest earnings, and loan repayments. It will be continuously appropriated for one purpose only: construction, planning, and development of rural water projects across South Dakota. It is structured responsibly. Grants are capped at 10% of construction costs. Loans are capped at 50%. The Board of Water and Natural Resources will establish clear criteria and oversee awards. This is not an open checkbook. It is a disciplined, leveraged investment. The $3 million transfer in this bill is seed money. It signals that South Dakota intends to plan ahead rather than react in crisis. It allows us to leverage federal dollars, strengthen the local systems, and reduce long-term costs to taxpayers. If we wait until our infrastructure fails, communities will face emergency borrowing, higher rates, and fewer options. Acting now gives us flexibility. Acting now protects affordability. Acting now ensures reliability. Clean, dependable water is not the option. Water will be the thing we fight over in the future. It is foundational to agriculture, small towns, schools, hospitals, industry, and economic growth. And of course, foundational to public health. Previous generations built the systems we rely on today. They did not wait for collapse. They invested for the long horizon. This bill asks us to do the same. The emergency clause recognizes urgency. Infrastructure does not pause while we debate. Federal opportunities will not wait for us to organize. Senate Bill 231 positions South Dakota to remain proactive, fiscally disciplined, and prepared for the next generation. This is a measured step. It is fiscally responsible, and it's necessary. Now, if any additional funds become available through the appropriation process, you can certainly increase. This can be our piggy bank for the future. On behalf of our children and grandchildren, I respectfully ask for your support, and I'll stand by for questions.
Thank you, Senator. Additional proponents, excuse me.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Garth Wadsworth with Elevate Rapid City. We've seen several bills aimed at addressing long-term access to water this session. I think even though we may not agree on what the exact solution should be, I think we all agree that there is a problem and something needs to be done. Senate Bill 231 is the only option that we have seen that does not reduce immediate access to available water resources, does not risk limiting development, and does not risk increasing property taxes. And so Senate Bill 231 provides a responsible mechanism with protections in place to protect South Dakota taxpayer dollars, yet allowing us to leverage federal funding opportunities in the future if they arrive. And so we thank you for your support.
Thank you. Additional proponents in the room? Any additional proponents for 231? We do have one online. Welcome, and please state your name.
Good morning. I'm Cheryl Chapman, the founding director of Western Dakota Regional Water. My successor, Kristen Consett, is unable to join us today. I'm here in support of Senate Bill 231 to establish a water infrastructure development fund and to recognize Senator Duhamel's vision and leadership to bring clean, abundant water to South Dakota. Western Dakota Regional Water began with a report from South Dakota Mines showing that there would not be enough water today in Pennington County in the event of severe drought. As local water leaders met to discuss these findings, one thing became very clear. No one entity could tackle this problem alone. Regional water projects throughout South Dakota are major infrastructure investments that require a funding partnership between communities, the state, and the federal government. The new fund would position the state to support these regional water projects with a 10% state match that is routinely required. Thank you for your consideration and support for Senate Bill 231.
Thank you very much. Any additional proponents? Are there any additional proponents for 231? Seeing none, are there any opponents? Are there any opponents for Senate Bill 231. Additional opponents, anyone online? No, seeing none, we will just move on to committee questions. Committee questions. Senator Voida.
For the prime, probably. And while you're coming up, how will this kind of tie in with Daner's existing water project funds, I guess? I know they have a whole bunch of them because we have a whole omnibus bill. Do you know how that would work?
Mr. Chairman, I'll do my best. To my knowledge, there is only funding for roughly $10 billion a year for all the water projects across the state. And they use that, to my knowledge, every year. There's another bill that's floating around with Senator Carr as a prime that wants an additional $10 million. And I think the bulk of that is riparian buffer strips. It says statewide. I think most of it is the one of the rivers. Nonetheless, this is a savings account. This is something we don't want to spend. We need the federal matching money. I'm convinced with Majority Leader Thune in charge, they're working on authorization right now. It was delayed till next week. I think we're going to fast track some of our projects and our needs in South Dakota. We can't move forward without a 10% match. We know it's coming. We have to start savings. And that's just something to hold on to when the time comes. It's not directed east or west. We know there's another pipeline being considered going to Sioux Falls. There's also work going to the northeast part of our state. The whole state is thirsty. This is our savings account to start planning for that matching money in the future. Not to spend every year, which we could.
Follow up.
And then just to address one piece of the bill that I'm not sure I like, the expenditures from the fund are continuously appropriated. Can you just explain how did we get to deciding that we wanted that to be continuously appropriated? I see the Board of Water and Natural Resources or who has control of it. What are the benefits of not having it go through a special appropriation or the G bill?
Mr. Chairman, we're just hoping that this is a savings account that we continue to maybe add a little bit every year, or big amount if we have it, because I think the needs are there. But that's the idea, that this board will be in charge. This is what they do. This is on the horizon for them, and it's just a savings account ready when the time comes. We don't know when that will be, but we have to be able to move quickly, we think, when the time comes.
I think as a follow-up to that, I'll have our LRC staff talk about that phrase, continuously appropriated.
Thank you.
Just briefly, Joey Knofchinsky, LRC Fiscal. Continuous appropriation is effectively a special appropriation, requires 2/3 votes, where money that is placed into a continuously appropriated fund is effectively appropriated for whatever purpose is listed within statute forever. So, in a sense, you could almost think of it as a special appropriation that is limited by what happens to be in the fund, but has an unlimited time frame.
Representative Mucky.
Mr. Chair, I was going to offer a do pass motion on Senate Bill 231.
Would you withdraw your motion?
I will withdraw the motion.
Thank you. Senator Carley.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I had a question for the primate. Could you just explain the match, how that match works with federal funds?
Mr. Chairman, Helene Duhamel, Rapid City, District 32. So how it's worked in the past with Lewis and Clark, and Sioux Falls wouldn't be Sioux Falls without Lewis and Clark, their access to water. 80% was federal, 10% was state, 10% was all the local partners. I don't know if the federal government will ever come back with an 80% match, but that is always the hope, and that's the plan. That's how it's worked in the past. So forward thinking, we're thinking we have to at least come up with 10% state match, and then all these local participants, and we're starting to already get their participation, and they're throwing money in. Certainly in western South Dakota, that's what we're doing. We're saying you got to have skin in the game. This won't just magically appear. Everybody has to follow what we think will be the formula moving forward, 10, 10, 80%.
Follow up.
Okay, so yeah, I saw Thune's press release about potentially $10 million that they would put towards water. So does that mean we need at least $1 million which would be 10% of gaining that additional 10 million that he's considering?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Potentially, they might also look at some of the money that's already been put in, since over the years we have been trying to put money, so far it's all been put into engineering, at least what went west. But potentially, yes. And that's the reason to have this savings account and get it ready now. We think with Senator Thune in the powerful position he's in, if we're going to make progress, it's now. I think we need to be prepared.
One more, thank you, Chair. Also, you mentioned Senator Carr's bill. His bill has $2 million allocated towards water projects. Could those funds be used instead of these funds for that? It does say water projects.
To my knowledge, I can't speak to his bill, but to my knowledge, all that money will be spent in this next year. It won't be savings. Could it be? That's not his intention, that would be used for matching funds. I couldn't speak for him. I think he has different thoughts on how it should go.
Any further questions? Okay, Representative Mucky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do pass motion on Senate Bill 231.
Motion by Representative Mucky, second by Representative Casson. Discussion on the motion.
Nothing too in-depth here. I appreciate the good prime sponsors' work on this, and I know it's a good thing for our state, so I'm pleased to move forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Senator Voida.
I'm pretty sure there's good support for this in the committee, and I also like the idea of what's going on here. I don't want to set up yet another fund that is continuously appropriated that the legislature has no oversight or say in, and so I'm going to be a no right now. And I don't know if you would consider tweaking that a little bit so that we do have some legislative control over it, but that's why I'll be a no on this.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Secretary, call the roll.
Senators and Representatives, Ms. Skimmons.
Aye.
Elk.
Aye.
Casson. Moore.
Aye.
Billhauer. Carly. Voida. Jorgensen. Howard. Foster. Sharda.
Aye.
Mucky.
Aye.
Zickman. Colbeck.
Aye.
Norstrup.
Aye.
Lapke. Jorgensen. Otten.
Aye.
Derby.
Aye.
13 yeas, 3 nays, 2 absent.
Motion do pass on Senate Bill 231 hereby passes. Okay, we have one more bill below the line. That's HB 1262. We did hear this bill. We had robust discussion, and we deferred action on it to today. And at this time, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Norstrup.
I would make a do pass motion on House Bill 1262.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion for due pass from Representative Norstrup, seconded by Senator Ms. Skimmons. Discussion on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, times are changing. There are elementary kids that are aggressive and violent and creating a health and safety risk to the schools. And a companion bill 1017 basically said we should deal with this problem. And the way we deal with it is we allow the schools to remove the violent kid from the classroom and put them in an environment that is therapeutic, which means we're going to try to fix things. We've done this in the past with Children's Home Society in Sioux Falls and Rapid, and the next logical step is Aberdeen. And there's been some expression of we need to do more beyond Aberdeen, and I agree with that. But we're here to do one step at a time, and so I would really appreciate this committee sending a strong signal to the body that we're fully supportive of this. Thank you.
Further discussion on the due pass motion on House Bill 1262. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Secretary, call the roll.
Senators and Representatives, Ms. Skimmons.
Aye.
Elk.
Aye.
Casson. Moore.
Aye.
Billhauer. Carly.
No.
Voida. Jorgensen.
Aye.
Howard. Foster. Sharda.
Aye.
Mucky.
Aye.
Sickman. Colbeck.
Aye.
Northrup.
Aye.
Lapke. Voida. Otten.
Aye.
Derby.
Aye.
14 yeas, 2 nays, 2 absent.
Motion do pass for House Bill 1262 hereby passes. Senator Otten?
For the Senate group, we're starting tomorrow at 9:30, 9 o'clock, and we'll go through our bills.
Is there anything else for the good of the cause? Anything else for the good of the cause? Yes, Senator Voida.
I move we adjourn.
Motion by Senator Voida, second by Senator Carly. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
SDPB brings you closer to your government. With gavel-to-gavel coverage of the South Dakota legislature and in-depth reporting from peer. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB.